We're going to use our colored pencils to draw dragon's eyes. And we've talked about how when you press harder with your colored pencil, you can get a darker color. A lighter press with your colored pencil makes it lighter. This is a great lesson to practice that. We're going to start with a white piece of paper and a pencil and draw our dragon's eye shape. I started with an oval shape. In the middle, I put a circle, and then you can see on the top, I echoed that oval with two more lines. I put a really skinny oval in the middle for the pupil, and then you can see I'm going around the outside of the image to make scales, sort of big rectangle shapes. So you can see in this eye, there's an oval with a circle in the middle, and then a line outside the oval. And then I start making those scales with a rounded rectangle shape. To give the eye some contrast, I used warm colors on the scales right outside the eye. And then the scales outside of that are cool colors. You could absolutely reverse it, but I would suggest sticking with a color family. And you can see that it goes from darker to lighter. Let me show you how I start to color it in. Initially, I started with the eyeball itself, and I went from dark to light. So I started with purple, and then went to blue, and then a lighter blue. Before I get too far, I also make sure to put two circles that I remind myself not to color in. One near the top left and one near the bottom right. By doing that, that's going to give me those highlights that I need to make the eye look really realistic. You can tell I almost forgot on this one. In a minute, I'm going to speed this up, and you'll notice that I go from dark colors to lighter colors. And as I'm coloring, I try to keep my hand sort of light and loose. And then later, I go back in and press harder to make the outside of that purple eye more obvious and dark. I want to make a really nice transition too from the darker colors to the lighter colors. So when I start adding other colors, I use a lighter touch, but I start with purple and add a little blue on top and then kind of go back and forth a little bit. When I start working on the black center for the eye, I outline it pretty heavily with that black. And then again, to make it more realistic, I will press pretty hard with that black colored pencil. And in fact, I also go back in with a violet color pencil to add a little extra dark depth. You can see that I'm making the outside especially dark. And then I go in and start bringing in some of those lighter blue colors. In this case, you can see I'm adding some horizontal lines to make it look fairly realistic. And the harder I press, the darker my colored pencil will be. If I start really dark, I have nowhere to go. So if I start light, then I can add more value on top as I'm working. Once I get the inside of the eye the way I like it, I want to start on the rest of it. And you can see I'm using a really light hand, a really light touch with that red colored pencil to make that sort of meaty flesh part. Once I've got a little pink in there, I go back in and fill in the rest of the eye with black. After I'm done with this, I move on to the scales, and that's where I can really explore using value with the colored pencil. So you can see that the harder I press, the darker the color is, but I start light, like I said. Now you're going to see me going in over everything with white because, of course, adding white to something will help make it lighter. When I use it on the black, you can see it's sort of smearing that black and blending it, which is a pretty cool effect. I go over this eye quite a few times, sometimes with white, and then I go back in with black a little bit to add some contrast to the eye and the eyeball. I work it quite a bit. Once I've got the inside of the eyeball pretty much the way I want it, now I'm going to work on those scales. And this project took me a long time. You can see that it could take a long time to go over all of the scales, to add really good value to everything. I start with a pretty dark outline, and then it transitions to the middle of the scales from red to orange to yellow. I'm going to speed this up and let you watch how I finished it. As you're watching, I hope you're noticing that I start working pretty light. And when I put my lines down, I don't just go back and forth. I use sort of little circular marks. Those initial lines, of course, are pretty straight back and forth. But then as I add the color in, it's sort of like little circles. Like I said, this project isn't pretty quick. It actually takes a while. And the more time you spend on it, the better it looks. I actually had a lot of fun with this project. I thought it was fun to make something look pretty realistic. I liked experimenting with different colors. And even though it was a lot of work and my hand got kind of tired, I thought it was worth it. And remember, you can also change colors. You could put the warm colors where I've got cool colors and vice versa. I like sticking with the color family though because I thought it made it look pretty consistent. I can't wait to see yours.